Well, just like we predicted, the Georgia State Panthers are 0-4. The Deacon David Shealy, Rashad Milligan with you. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Primetime Sports Talk. Rashad Milligan, 17-3 loss today for the Georgia State Panthers. They are 0-4 like we predicted. What's your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts are we didn't lose as bad as we thought we would, but at the end of the day, like you said, we're 0-4. No moral victories around this town. And, the offense is really bad. That's the main thing that stands out to me. The defense is so improved. Mm-hmm. Bobby Baker said before the season he believes they're the best defense in the conference. Mm-hmm. I believe that after watching these first 4 games. They're very, very impressive. I don't think the statistics of the opposing team's offenses really show the job that our defense is doing. And I think it's kind of a shame that our offense can't carry that load for them, equal balance,
Yeah, and I think one of the main points you brought up was that the offense was bad.
Right.
And Connor Manning threw 4 interceptions today, and the offense was absolutely flat. And even when the offense could do something and get in field goal range, they ended up missing a field goal today.
Right. So, Tim Lewis, the new kicker, mm-hmm. This is his first year ever playing football.
Right.
So it's kind of like when you replace a guy like Will Lutz with someone like that. Will Lutz missed his fair share of field goals as well. On triple duty, he got tired. But it's tough. It's tough. You're in a tough position when you have to replace someone like a Nick Arbuckle and also a Will Lutz. And
I think what also is tough is playing a team like Appalachian State.
Oh, definitely.
And Appalachian State they did not beat Tennessee. Tennessee beat Appalachian State by the skin of their teeth.
Right.
And so the challenge was very, very high for both the offense and the defense. I think the defense stepped up the way they needed to today.
Right.
They held Appalachian State to 0 points. But on the flip side of that, Georgia State's offense scored 0 points in the first half.
Right. And I think App State, if you look at the Sun Belt and the rest of the conference, I think they're miles above anyone else in the conference. Honestly, for the past 2 seasons, I think App State just came into that Sun Belt, if I'm not mistaken, about 3 seasons ago, maybe longer than that. But App State, I think they need to be in another conference because in football, at least these guys, they stand out among everyone. I think Georgia Southern is probably the team that's closest to them, and they're still not on App State's level. And we see this every year. Like App State gave us, I think, our worst loss last year. So,
yeah, 37-3.
Exactly.
Our anchor, Joey Redmond, talked about it on Friday on Primetime Sports. And before that was a 37-3 game last year. 2 years before that, it was 44-0.
Well, improvement, slow progress. By 2020, we should be able to put up 14 points against App State.
Right. But here's the problem, though.
Right.
All time, Georgia State has scored 6 points on Appalachian State.
All time? Oh, wow.
All time.
Well, we only had 3 meetings.
That's true, but in 3 meetings, you scored 6 points. That's pretty bad.
Right, that's bad. That's bad. Let me play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
I don't want to be, too, all right, we take no moral victories. But at the same time, Georgia State's 3 years in the Sun Belt, 6 years just existing, period.
The same team that went to a bowl game last year.
The benefit of the doubt. Yeah, the same team that went to a bowl game, but you're talking about a team against a team with 100 years of history, close to a century of history, a team that beat the number 1 team, obviously, Michigan in 2008, a team that almost beat the SEC team, Tennessee, to open the season. So there's App State,
Yeah, but at the same time, App State didn't do what they were really supposed to do on offense either. Because
they didn't.
Going into this game, App State was 19-point favorites.
Right.
And App State only scored 17 points, period.
Right.
So if I look at just the first quarter, there were 6 punts between Georgia State and Appalachian State,
right.
And then a missed field goal by App State, and that was just in the first half. They missed a field goal in the second half as well. But App State didn't really do what they really need to do on offense. So if you want to gas up App State, you have to, I would say, look at this game and say they didn't play that well.
Okay, but their defense held Georgia State to 3 points.
Yes, they did.
The offense, let me get back to the offense. I'm going to tell you kind of what I see in the offense. The offense is such a pain to watch. The entire season, it's a struggle. It's a true struggle. You got Martin Luther King, he's such a great speaker, because you can feel that pain in his voice. You can feel the struggle sometimes.
Okay.
And when I see Georgia State trying to drive down the field, I feel that struggle. When they get a first down, I'm like, great job, guys. Great job.
Right.
the offense, it shouldn't look that difficult to get a first down. And it is week after week. And granted, these were the toughest 3 games of the season, obviously, back to back to back. But these guys, they have to get it together. And the App State defense, you got to give them their credit where credit is due. They have the athletes and everything like that, forcing Conor Manning to 4 interceptions because he didn't throw 4 interceptions against the number 9 team in the country.
No.
So, you got to give App State their credit where it's due, but the offense has to do a better job as well.
And it's not like the offense can't play well.
Right.
They can. We saw it against Wisconsin. They played well. Not well enough to win, but they played well.
I mean, even against Wisconsin, it kind of looked like, they were dependent on 15-yard passes to Keith Rucker to get down the field, 19-yard passes to Robert Davis to get down the field, a little 17-yard pass to Todd Boyd. They were focused on the passes. That one touchdown run by Kyle Lanier was the best run of the season, and it was 9 yards, 9, 10, 11 yards at the most. That's unacceptable. The running game has to get it going. We have 4 or 5 guys running every single week. The fact that the largest average we get is from a guy named Darius Stubbs,
who's a freshman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I've never heard of him before this season. Averaging 4 yards. That's probably a high for a guy that has run the ball other than Aaron Winchester the first game, or average rushing yards per carry.
Right.
That's just sad, man. Sad. The running game, they had to get it together. Go.
I was gonna make a point about the running game for Georgia State never really being good traditionally anyway.
Right.
The running game's never been that good. It's the passing game that Georgia State's had to depend on.
Right.
Nick Arbuckle was averaging 330 plus yards a game through the air.
Right.
They no longer have Arbuckle, obviously.
Right.
Manning isn't trying to be Arbuckle, but Manning is not even being a good Manning. I mean, you can think of a couple of good Manning quarterbacks, right?
Just a couple.
Just a couple. I mean, they only got 4 Super Bowls to their names, right? But I think that the passing game does need to improve, but it's going to hurt trying to keep the passing game going because Penny Hart broke his foot today.
Right.
And Penny Hart's also been lost for the season, according to head coach Trent Miles, and I think that's going to hurt tremendously. Definitely.
To lose your number 1 option. But you have to also keep it a positive because going into the season, I believe Georgia State could go 5 deep at the receiver position. You had Penny Hart, Todd Boyd, Robert Davis.
You're missing some. I mean, there's a couple other ones.
You had a couple other
ones.
Well,
5 deep at receiver or 5 deep receiving options? Because Keith Rucker's there too.
Well, if you're talking about receiving options, that's much easier because you got Keith Rucker, Ari Warts.
Yep.
Those guys can go about 3 deep. They used to have Matavius Scott, who's no longer on the team. But those guys could go very, very deep on the receiving options. And so to lose Penny Hart is obviously disheartening. But, like you said, our strong point is supposed to be in the air. But you can't get the passing game going if you can't run it. Last year, even though our running game wasn't strong last year necessarily, I saw from my own eyes down in Georgia Southern, down in Statesboro, I've seen those guys, Kyle Lanier, wear the defense down, wearing them down, playing their own game, playing the Georgia Southern game against Georgia Southern. I've seen Nick Arbuckle take it a couple times himself, and Connor tried to do it, but 2 yards, one rushing.
And he paid for it too. He took quite the hit when he did that.
It was an ugly attempt. He's not Aaron Winchester by any stretch of the imagination.
And they've been splitting time.
Right.
Throughout the season, but no split today.
Time. No split today after a performance like that in Wisconsin.
Right.
He certainly earned his sole position this week to have an entire week to himself. But after this week, what would you say with Conor Manning and Aaron Winchester? Where do you see the quarterback battle?
Well, here's my thing. Because we saw the performance of Conor Manning at Wisconsin, correct?
Right, correct.
And it was not well enough to win, like I said, but still good.
Correct.
So, Georgia State then goes into a bye week last week. Georgia State had the whole week off. Well, they didn't have the whole week off. They practiced that week, but they didn't have to game plan for anybody.
Right.
So after Wisconsin, in my mind, I say, okay, Conor Manning is the starting quarterback. Aaron Winchester is the backup. Right. Here's the thing. You have an entire week where you're not game planning for somebody else. You have an entire week just to get better at what you do.
Correct.
Just to improve on yourself, to work on yourself. In fact, you don't have to worry about trying to get 2 quarterbacks splitting reps with the ones, you have a quarterback who is the number one.
Correct. And you know this. They know.
And now they know.
The players knew that bye week. I remember, shout out to Dimitri Chen from The Signal across the hall. Dimitri, he interviewed Robert Davis, and he mentioned that Connor was the man. He was the guy.
Right.
And that was during the bye week. So they knew right after that Wisconsin game, there was no more debate. There was no more questions. Connor Manning took the offensive lineman out to eat, just like Aaron Winchester did before the season. And they knew.
They knew.
Connor Manning was the guy. There's no, we didn't prepare, we didn't. You had 2 weeks. And you looked the same way you looked against Air Force. You looked the same way you looked against Ball State. Wisconsin, you looked the same way that you did that last drive against Wisconsin.
Because they played pretty decent.
Because that last drive was that 3-and-out, 3 passes that were nowhere near where they needed to be. And since you don't have a running game, back to looking at you, Kyler Nell, looking at you, Glenn Smith, Darius Stubbs, Kendrick Dorn. I don't know where he was today. He might have been hurt. I don't know. He's not on the stat sheet. But I'm looking at those guys. Since you can't do your job effectively enough, Connor has to make those passes, and he has to force those throws. And everybody in the stadium, including the person all the way at the top in the bleachers, they know what you're going to do. And he's no Nick Arbuckle, as we said earlier. So, Connor, you've got to get better. Connor's got to get better, but at the same time, it's on the running backs as well.
I think it's on the entire offense as a unit, and it always starts up front. And we like to get upset at the running backs and say it's their fault.
Correct.
And sometimes it's the push up front that's not there. There are times that it's the vision of the running backs, but there are times where the offensive line just isn't getting the push.
I feel like the offensive line have also received a good amount of criticism this year. Just from what I've seen, just from the fans, the offensive linemen have been criticized a great deal this year. Gabe Mobley, you have to do better. Gabe Mobley, since we're calling out people, preseason watch list for one of the best offensive linemen in America, and now you're on what looks like one of the worst offensive lines in Division I football right now because you have one of the worst rushing games in America right now.
So it was, 88 net rushing yards for Georgia State today.
Better than it was at Air Force.
Better than Air Force, but the theme that we've gone over the entire year was how many rushing yards would the Georgia State defense give up?
Right.
And today that was 218.
Well, you're going against a triple option team again, like Air Force.
Just like Air Force, correct. And I think that when they went against a team that wasn't triple option, Ball State, they gave up 325.
I think Ball State game was an unfair, as I said before, Georgia State, they looked very, very strong on defense at the beginning of those games.
Yeah.
Is when you start to get run down because the time of possession ratio is so inexcusable. This time it wasn't that bad. App State beat us by 11 minutes. But that Air Force game, when you're on the field 30 more minutes than the offense is.
Right. They're going to get tired. You're absolutely right.
You're going to get tired, and you're going to get that's exactly what Georgia State did to Georgia Southern last year. That's how they beat them 34-7. But, I can't put it – you can't really judge the run defense. I don't think you can fairly because the offense can't stay on the field long enough.
Right. And I think that's one issue that we did touch on earlier about the offense improving.
Right.
And I think it's just going to be a problem doing that without Penny Hart, which is why I think just that injury really, really hurts the entire offense, which is already not good.
I think you should have Robert Davis, Keith Rucker, Ari Wards.
They do, yes, but Penny Hart is a deep threat.
He is.
He's the number one. But when you think about this, you have 2 deep threats. You got 2 guys that can stretch the field. Secondaries have to account for that.
Correct.
I don't think Ari Wirtz is going to get double teamed.
No, he's not.
He's not as fast as Penny.
He's not.
Penny Hart has so much speed that you have to account for him.
You have to.
And now Robert Davis is now the number one. He's going to see the double team.
Correct.
They can run, opposing defenses can run some regular schemes. They can run man-to-man on Ari. They can run man-to-man on Todd. Correct. They don't need safety help over that.
Right.
So it's going to eliminate a lot of options. And I think when Penny Hart went out the game today, that's actually what App State adjusted to.
Correct.
Now, Robert Davis did end up catching the ball 5 times for 56 yards, had a 20-yard completion.
Right.
But some of those you did see where Connor Manning was trying to force a pass, led to an interception.
Yes.
So that's why I'm saying Penny Hart only had how many catches today?
3.
3. But at the same time, when he's on the field, you have to account for that guy.
Correct.
That's why I think the issue lies here, more than just, well, Penny Hart wasn't catching that many balls anyway, or he wasn't doing that much anyway.
It's more of a coverage thing.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I agree with that. I see your point right there. Any game balls?
Yeah, so we do have to give out game balls, and we always. I want to do a positive twist first of all.
Correct.
Before we get straight to game balls, I do want to do a positive thing here. On the defensive side of the ball, we've been talking about how strong the defense is on the first half of games, and they did hold Appalachian State to 0 points in the first half.
Correct.
So I do want to give credit to the defense for doing that. They also got into situations where they forced Appalachian State to kick field goals, and Appalachian State isn't that good at special teams because they missed 2 field goals today.
Right.
So props to the defense for doing that. And the leader in tackles today was Alonzo McGee. Also want to give a shout-out to Jerome Smith, who got a sack on a cornerback blitz.
Jerome Smith, Jerome Smith did have the sack of probably the year for Georgia State.
Probably.
Did you say? All right, but also Jerome Smith had the most embarrassing moment of Georgia State. Jerome, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. Just comes with the territory, man. It's a viral type of deal right here.
Okay.
So App State receiver gets the ball, he throws a stiff arm right in Jerome Smith's face mask. He rips off his helmet. I've never seen this before. One arm stiff arm. He rips off his helmet. I've never seen that from a receiver on a cornerback. Have you ever seen that?
No, personally, no. But I still think Jerome Smith is a talented guy.
Yeah, Jerome Smith.
Oh,
yeah, definitely a talented guy.
Jerome Smith still has the most defensive touchdowns this year.
Okay. Well, the first touchdown out of everybody on the team.
Everybody was a Jerome Smith pick
congratulations. The first touchdown of the year, the first score was a Jerome Smith pick 6, and he had the sack of the year. So shouts out to you, Jerome Smith. But at the end of the day, he did get his helmet ripped off.
Yeah, his helmet did get ripped off. And we're giving Jerome a lot of shout-outs, but he's not the one getting the game ball, actually. And as you can see, we have a game ball now. We actually have a game ball. Now, basketball, we had a beautiful basketball, and that basketball will be back. Well, a new basketball will be back, but now we have a football. And for the first time, we're going to sign it right here. There's already a couple names. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's already a couple names from the first couple of shows. So Ari Wertz has one, and Chase Middleton has another one. And ironically enough, Jerome Smith already has 2.
Did you give the game ball to Ari Wertz? Just a personal question.
No, you did.
I did.
Because he had a one-handed catch.
Wow.
You don't remember giving him the...
Oh, I do not. You see the inside joke around here. I believe you brought it up yourself about Madison Newby, Ari Wertz's girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
David's favorite player to give game balls to.
Well, she's my favorite player on the team, but it's not basketball season right now. We can get into that a little bit later in like a couple months.
Right.
But for this game,
they started practice now.
They do start practice, but they don't play their first game for a little bit.
Correct.
But when they do, we'll get to that. There's a time and a place for everything. But right now, we're going to do football game balls. And mine is going to go to Alonzo McGee, led the team with 11 tackles. He's one of the leaders on that defense, him alongside Bobby Baker. I think he did a good job today, especially with 6 solo tackles. So shout out to Alonzo McGee. You, sir, are my game ball recipient. So Alonzo McGee, AM. All right, here you go.
Okay, thank you, David. All right, so for my game ball, I just want to give a couple shout-outs first. Michael Shaw, he had the lone pick of the day. He said it was a cool pick.
It was an athletic pick. It was very nice. Yeah, I liked it.
So you had Michael Shaw, and he also was the one during the bye week. I don't know if you saw the report on local news here in Atlanta, but Michael Shaw, someone broke in during practice to one of the players' vehicles. Michael Shaw left practice to confront the person, and the person drew a gun on him, and Michael Shaw went back to practice, told coaches, got the entire situation handled out. So shout out to Michael Shaw. He's had an eventful last couple of weeks. I want to give my game ball to, I want to say, the kicker, Brandon Wright, because he had a couple of good punts today. Very good punts.
Yeah.
In a game where you only score 3 points, this could be the time for the special teams guys to shine. But I'm not going to do that because we had a very special day today in Georgia State history. Today, Robert Davis caught 5 balls, and that put him 4 above current Kansas City Chief Albert Wilson for the all-time record of career receptions at Georgia State. So you, Mr. Robert Davis, get the game ball for being the new reception
All right,
king.
congratulations to Robert Davis.
Congratulations to you, Robert.
All right, can we get that on there? Is it on there? Is it
on?
good?
Is it?
It's a little. All right, there we go. We're good. It's all good. It's on there. It's not going to go anywhere. It's in a solid place. We've got 2 new names on there. We'll be adding names every single show. Of course, Georgia State returns home next week. They'll be taking on Texas State. And they did beat Texas State last year, so Georgia State does know how to beat somebody in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, exactly. But we also beat Ball State last year, who was out of non-conference.
But Georgia State has a chance to win next week.
We have a chance.
In front of the home crowd.
Finally back home. It feels good to have the boys coming back home.
Exactly. And we'll be on hand for that game. And after that game, we'll be right back in this room doing another episode of Primetime Sports Talk. Rashad Milligan, Deacon David Shealy. We'll see you guys next time.
Sayonara.